The tensions in the South China Sea have further intensified recently. So in your opinion, what are the key factors contributing to the tensions?
I think one of the key factors that is contributing to the intensifying and escalating tension between the Philippines and China is the very assertive posture or position of the Philippines at this time. As you can see, there's a change in foreign policy, and the previous administration of President Duterte somewhat have a more negotiating posture and more collaborative and cooperative posture with China when you talk about the South China Sea. But this time around, as you can see, the current administration of Marcos Jr. is more assertive, I think. And on the other hand, of course, I understand that China claiming parts of South China Sea, especially part of its sovereign territory, would of course do a countermeasure to that very assertive claim by the Philippines. I think that's one thing, and another factor I think is most probably the current administration of Marcos Jr. is having this kind of thinking that probably the United States will back it up, the Philippines, whatever happens in the South China Sea, especially when you talk about a military outbreak or some kind of skirmishes that is more intensified.
How do you view the role of external factors in this issue, such as the United States? Because some people are saying that only by escalating the tensions between China and the Philippines can the United States advance its Indo-Pacific strategy. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think the United States is playing a very chaotic role in the South China Sea. First and foremost, the United States not even a signatory to UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So that's even a very paradoxical kind of situation for the United States to interfere in the South China Sea. Second is it wants to preserve so-called freedom of navigation. That's more their interest. It's not the interest of my country. So if you look at it, the role that the United States is playing, pushing my country, telling my country as if they will back the Philippines when the time comes that there will be skirmishes between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea, is making the whole South China Sea issue complicated. It is not a party to the dispute. Probably the behavior of the United States should be that it should not interfere. So as a respectful country, probably they should refrain from interfering. Let the claimant states like China and the Philippines resolve their own problem and dispute in the South China Sea without interference, so that there will be no complication. The problem with the United States, it has its own interests, and it's using my country as a proxy and a pawn in its Indo-Pacific strategy. And the battleground right now of this Indo-Pacific strategy is my country. And my country is being used to push the interests of the United States in the Indo-Pacific. And the problem only right now probably is the current administration is a willing pawn. I'm not saying that the Filipinos are the willing pawn. No, it's not. It's the administration. The United States is always a troublemaker. We don't want our country to be dragged in any kind of conflict that is not our own making, and that will not protect us, that will not put us in a very good situation, and it's not within our national interest. The national interest of the country, of my country, is peace, economic development, and preservation of our national sovereignty.
Looking ahead, what are the most critical steps needed to manage the current tensions?
If you look at the situation, it's very difficult. No one will bend. That's why I'm saying, set aside this dispute, focus on South China Sea, looking at it as a public good and a sea of cooperation and peace and friendship. Probably by focusing on that and by doing that, everyone benefits, everyone is happy. There are two ways of negotiation. You can be bilateral, you talk it out between the two countries. The other one is multilateral within the ambit of ASEAN. Because you have the ASEAN, and ASEAN has a role to play. It should not be the United States, but it should be ASEAN. I think these are two levels, the multilateral level through the ASEAN and the bilateral. So if my country can push for this, I think this tension in the South China Sea would de-escalate. And at the same time, probably more cooperation will come in, and understanding between the two countries would be deepened more compared to what is going on right now, that there's like a diplomatic crisis between China and the Philippines. This dispute, to be very frank, will never be resolved even in 10 years' time. I think the next generation can resolve it, and just sit it there, just negotiate on what needs to be done that benefits both countries and other countries in Southeast Asia. That should be the attitude of people at this time, rather than escalating the conflict.